Rambam Hilchos Genevah Perek Shvi, the 7th chapter. Aleph. Hashekel lachavedim mishkolis chasedis min hamishkol sheskimu olav b'nei Eisa Medina. When a person weighs for a friend using weights that are less than the weights accepted by the Medina, by the country. Or he measures using a measure that contains less than the measure used by people in that country. He violates a leisase, Shemar, as it says, to not act deceitfully with regards to judgment concerning measures, weights, and Masuda's liquid measures. Base. Although a person who measures with inaccurate measures or weights is a ganef, he's not required to make kefil of the stolen amount. He either gives them the proper measure of the article, he either gives them the midah or the mishkol. He does not get malchus for this violation because the ganav is obligated to pay up. Whoever has such a imperfect measure or weight in his home or store, he is a revelation. It says, should not have it in your pocket, 2 sets of weight. So I feel last is a midah of it, so maybe well, may not even use this measure as a to go to the bathroom. Even if he does not use it to buy and sell, another person who does not know this may come and use this measure. But you do not get malchus because it's a lav shein b'maisa. Doesn't involve the deed. If a standard seal was set or fixed to all the measures and weights in the city, and the imperfect measure did not have such a seal, it's permitted to leave it for the other household purposes. Now, similarly, when a seller became, let's say, blemished at its size, a person should not use it as a weight, nor should he throw it amongst his pieces of scrap metal. And he should not drill a hole in it and hang it around his son's neck. Maybe another person will come and make it appear as a weight. So what's the solution? Either grind it into powder, cut it into small pieces, or pulverize it, or throw it into the Yam HaMelech, in the Dead Sea. Hey, if the size of the cellar was reduced to the extent that it was halved, so it may be used. If it was reduced to less than half or more than half, it should be cut until it becomes reduced. If it was reduced by less than 1/6 of its worth, it may be used for buying and selling, but not for the weight. The thing is that whenever it's less than a 6, people will forgo this amount. When a seller is damaged in the center, it may not be sold to a killer or a thief, for they may use it to deceive others. You can place, however, place a hole in the center and hang it around the child's neck. That's not a problem. A person should make his measure as the size of a saw, half a saw, and a quarter of a saw. Half a kav, a quarter of a kav, an eighth of a kav, and a 24th of a kav. Should not, however, make a measure of 2 kavim, lest he make a mistake for a quarter of a saw, which is a kav and a half. To regard to liquid measure, one should make a hin, a half a hin, a third of a hin, a quarter of a hin, lug, half a lug, quarter of a lug, an eighth of a lug, and a 1/6 of a lug. You may measure the Chacham did not forbid one making a hin and a quarter of a hin, although they could be confused with each other because there were such measures in the Mikdash from the times of Moshe Rabbeinu. Ches, echad aneseh v'aneseh in Yisrael. Whether a person deals with a Yid or a Goy, a Madad, a Shakal, B'chasser, Eber, Lisasei, V'chayv L'Hafer. Now, it doesn't matter if it's a Yid or a Goy, if he measures or weighs with a measure that is lacking, he's Eber, Lisasei, and is obligated to return it, to return the difference. It's forbidden to deceive a Goy with regards to an account. So never, like it says, V'chishev im keneu. You should reckon with the purchaser. Even though the Goy is under your control. How much more so a Goy was not under your control. Now, anybody who performs this, including amongst what the pasuk says, they are a te'aba, they are abomination to Hashem, who do all these things and act very crooked. Same halacha applies regarding the measurements of the land. If a person deceives a friend with the in regards to the measurement of land, he's a religious. Remember, like it says, do not act deceitfully with regard to judgment concerning measures. Measure refers to the measurement of the land. Pasuk is saying that one should not act deceitfully with regards to any judgment, be judgment concerning measures, one of weights, or one involving tiny liquid measures the size of a mesura. Yud. When people of a company are exact in their dealings with each other, and they exchange one portion of a carbon offering for another, or they borrow food and then return its equivalent, they are over the Isra against false measurements, false weights, and false amounts. If they do not return the exact amount, if the exchange takes place on Yom Tov, it's also a Isra against borrowing and repaying on Yom Tov. Yud Aleph, Hamasik wurde wefnes betchum chavedim betich tchum afidum le'emsa im bechoskos arza Gaza. The person who is going on the property boundaries of a friend and includes even the finger breadths of his friend's landed property in his own property, he's over. And if he acts openly by the power of force, he's a robber. If he does it quietly, then he's a thief. Person who is Masig Hu in Eretz Yisrael transgresses the two negative commandments, the Isra against either theft or robbery, or the Isra against moving a property boundary. In Chayiv B'lav Zeh Ela B'Eretz Yisrael is only Chayiv Eretz Yisrael. Remember, like it says, Menachaloscha Shetinchal, in the heritage of you will require. Anyways, Kosha Anshin Anshal Midas Yasarm Anshin Ashal Arayis Trezeb Beinei Levein Amakim Azeh Beinei Levein Chaveri. Punishment for a person who uses false measures is greater than the punishment for Arayis. But this is a sin between a person and his friend, and this is a sin between a person and Hashem. Whoever denies the mitzvah of just measures is considered as he denied the Yitzis Mitzrayim, which is the first commandment of Hashem. Anyone who accepts the mitzvah of measures is considered as if he acknowledges the exodus from Egypt, which brought about all of Hashem's commandments. Perek Ches, chapter 8 of Hilchos Genevah, Aleph. Mitzvah Zaselet Tzaddik Amaznayim Amashkolis V'Amidis Yofa Yofa L'Daktik B'Cheshbeinin B'Shas Asiyosan Shnemer Wa'oznei Tzedek V'Gemer. It's a mitzvah Zaseh to correct the scales, weights, and measures carefully, and to be careful, exact in their measurements when making them, as it says, Wa'oznei Tzedek, you shall correct scales. You shall have correct scales. V'Chem B'Midas Sakarka Tzref L'Daktik B'Cheshbeinin M'Shicha Sakarka Al Pi HaYikodim HaMazborim B'Ksivis HaGemotrio. With regard to the measurements of the land, one must be exact according to the principles of geometry. Even a finger breadth of land is considered to be a great loss, as if it's filled with karkmel with saffron. The 4 amas that are the next to an irrigation ditch need not be measured carefully, and those are next to a river bank are not measured at all, for they belong to the Rosh Hashanah. Gimel, person who measures land should not measure the portion of one part in the summer and one in the winter, because a rope will contract in the summer. Therefore, if the measurement was made with a rod or the iron chains, etc., the difference in seasons are of no consequence. Al Dalad. Weight should not be made out of iron, lead, or other metals of that nature, for they rust and become reduced in weight. One should make them from marble, glass, diamond, and the like. Hey, a stick used to level the top of the dry measure should not be made of a gourd, because it's too light. Nor of metal, because it's too heavy. It should be made of olive oil, walnut, boxwood, sycamore wood, and the like. The stick used to level the top of the dry measure should not be made with one side narrow, one side thick. One should not level measure slowly, bit by bit. For in doing so, the seller is cheated. Nor should it be leveled in one swoop, for by doing so, the purchaser is cheated. One may not bury weights in salt, so that their weights will be reduced. Made it normally 1 feet while measuring a liquid. I feel like even if it's very small. The Torah says, which means a mesura is a very tiny measure, a liquid measure, nearly a 33rd of a loik. Ches. Selling of scrap iron or anything similar should construct of the scale that they use in the following manner. The balance that the person who is weighing holds in his hand should hang freely in the air for at least 3 tvachim, and should be 3 tvachim above the ground. The length of the center pole and the length of the cables should be 12 tvachim. Maznayim test. Maznayim shall make it summer shall make the sultas ye'oidach haputim shen tlim by shnei tvachim u'gvim in ours shnei tvachim ha'kanam ha'fut and arkin tisha tvachim. A scale used by a wool merchant and glass merchant should be constructed in the following manner. The balance should hang freely in the air for at least 2 handbreadths. That should be 2 handbreadths above the ground. The length of the center pole, the length of the cable should be 9 tvachim. Yod maznayim shall chenvani v'shal balabais ye'oidach haputim shen tlim by staff of gvim in ours telch ha'kanam ha'fut and arkin tisha tvachim. The scale used by an ordinary storekeeper and a house owner should be constructed in the following manner. The balance should hang freely in the air, or at least 1 tefach. One should be 1 tefach above the ground. The length of the center pole and the length of the cable should be 6 tvachim. The cables on which the balance is hung, and similarly, cables of the scales used to weigh all the used by merchants of purple fabric should be 3 tvachim long, and should be 3 tvachim above the ground. No standard measure was given for the length of the balance of the length of the chains. It depends on the desire of the person doing the weighing. What's the market that teaches us that one must tip the balance in favor of the purchaser when it's being purchased? Remember, it says Eler Shlema v'tzedek yilaf shall make a perfect and just weight. There it says, justify your balance from what you have and give it to him. How much should the seller tip in the purchaser's favor? With regard to nipping measure, 1/100th of the amount purchased. With regard to the dry measure, 1/100th of the amount purchased. If he sold him 10 pounds of a liquid measure, he should give him 1/10 of a pound of extra amount. If he sold him 20 pounds of dry measure, he should give him an extra 20th of a pound. If he says, you should follow this ratio, whether the amount involves or great or small. In a place where it is customary to sell by looking at the scale, In a place where it's customary to actually tip the balance, one must tip at least a tevach in favor of the purchaser. The seller had to weigh 10 pounds for the purchaser. The purchaser should not say, weigh them out one at a time and tip the balance each time. Instead, the seller may weigh out all 10 at once and tip the balance only once the entire amount. There's another it's customary to measure with a small measure. You should not measure with a large one. The opposite should also. The place is customary with a large measure. One should not measure with a small measure. When it's customary to even off the measure, one should not sell a heaping measure and raise the price, nor where it's customary to give a heaping measure, should one sell the level measure and reduce the price. You have to measure according to the minimum. When the inhabitants of the locale want to increase the size of the measures or weights, they should not increase it more than a sixth. If a kav held measures, let's say they may establish it, let's say 5, they can establish it as 6. However, more than 6, they're not allowed to do. A wholesale merchant must clean his measures every 30 days. How much? Every 12 months. A storekeeper has to do it twice a week. Once a week he must wash his hands, and he should clean the balance after every time that he weighs so that he will not rust. Yod test. If a person who desires to weigh 3/4 of a pound of meat should place a pound on one side of the balance and place the meat of the quarter weight on the other side of the balance. And if one said that one should place half a pound weight and a quarter weight on one side and the meat on the other side, it's impossible that the quarter weight would fall without being seen by the lekeach, or the purchaser. The Beis Din is obligated to appoint police at every city in town to inspect the stores periodically, correct the scales and measures, and set the prices to make sure it's right. Now, if they find that they're playing games, it's permitted to beat any person who possesses such an unjust measure or weight with an improper balance according to the capacity, and to find them the way they see force fit. Whenever a person raises prices and sells at a higher price, he may be beaten and compelled to sell at the Shar HaShuk, at the market price. Hilchos Genevah, Perek Shi, Chapter 9. Aleph, Kol HaGenev, Nefesh Adam, Ever Leisasei, whoever kidnaps another person's Ever Leisasei. Shtamnak says, Leit Tignev, do not steal. Plus, it's Omer Baser Satvanim, he has early Genev Nefashis, when the Teda speaks in Aser Satibris, this refers to kidnapping. Ever Leisasei, person who sells a kidnapped person is Ever Leisasei, like it says, Layimachrum in Karis Eved, you're not selling in the manner like a servant is sold. And Loikin Afshnei Lab and Elo, when they show Lab, the Shanita Nazar Smith says, based on Shinamer Kimatz Ish, going in Nefesh by Aflev. When we saw Semechenet, the two transgressions are not punished by Malchus because they involve capital punishment. As it says, when a person is found stealing one of the brethren, the thief shall die. He is to be executed by Chenet. Strangulation. Base. Ein Haganov Chai Mrs. Tenek Achi Genevah Sishal Yaknisul Shusai, Yishtamish Levi and Genel Ashkedim. A kidnapper is not fired for capital punishment unless it kidnaps a Jewish person, brings him into the kidnapper's own domain, and makes use of him, and then sells him to other. And he makes use of them and he sells them. Even if he makes use of the service for a minor matter, not worth a fruta. In other words, he leaned on him or used him as a shield, even if he abducted a person who was asleep at the time, the kidnapper is considered that made use of him. Gimel. If the kidnapper kidnapped the person, made use of him and sold him without taking the abducted person from his own domain and bring him to the kidnapper's domain, he is pater. He's not chayav for capital punishment if he kidnapped him, brought him into the kidnapper's domain, made use of him, and did not sell him or sold him before he made use of him. So like it says, it has to be they sold and made use of him. Similarly, so first of all, if the kidnapper made use of the abducted person but sold him to one of the abducted persons, like the relatives, he sold him to his father or his brother, he's not chayav for punishment. Why? Because the pasuk says stealing his brothers, implied that the abducted person must be separated from his brothers and relatives through the scale. Similarly, if the kidnapper kidnapped the abducted person, made use of him and sold him, all of this while the abducted person was sleeping, the kidnapper is not chayav for misa. Similarly, if he kidnapped a pregnant woman and sold off only her offspring, he made an agreement with the purchaser and he retained possession to the woman, and the purchaser is entitled only to the offspring, so he's not chayav. Hey, person not chayav capital punishment. Now, a person who kidnapped his son or his brother who's below maturity, or a guardian who kidnapped the orphans who are in his trust, or the homeowners who kidnapped one of the members of his household, or let's say a teacher kidnapped one of his students, he is patur. Now, it says, and he's found in his hand, it excludes those who are constantly found in your hands. Kidnapper, either a male or a female, is chayav for capital punishment, regardless of whether he kidnaps an adult or a one-time old infant, provided the pregnancy was full term, and regardless of whether the abducted person was female or male or female. This is applied above, but it says veinim nefesh. It makes no difference if one kidnapped a yid or a convert or a eved meshupra or a free Canani slave. Like it says, nefesh of one of his brothers. And there are brothers related to the bond of Teda and Mitzvahs. Again, it was and then he's pater. When a person breaks into a home, whether at night or during the day, license is granted to kill him. If either the homeowner or another person kills him, they are not chayav. License to kill him applies both on Shabbos and during the week, but when they kill him in any possible manner, this, like it says, ain't dom, he has no blood. Plus, this applies to a thief caught breaking in or one caught on a person's roof, courtyard, or in a closed area, whether during the day or during the night. Why does the Torah say breaking in? Because it's the general practice of ganavim, of thieves, to break in the night. Test. Why does the Torah permit you to the blood of such a ganav to be shed, although he is only attempting to steal your money? Because it's a chazaka that if the homeowner rises and attempts to prevent the thief from stealing, the thief will kill him. So the thief entering his friend's house to steal is basically a raid of seeking to kill his friend. Therefore, he should be killed whether he's an adult, a minor, a man, or a woman. If it is clear to the house owner that the thief who breaks in will not kill him, instead is only seeking financial gain, it's forbidden to kill him, to kill the thief. If he kills him, then it's considered murder. Now, that it says if the sun shines upon him, if it's clear to you as the sun that there is peace with you, do not kill him. Therefore, a father who breaks into his son's home should not be killed. Other than that, he may be killed. Now, with regards to a thief who stole and departed, or one who did not steal but was caught leaving the tunnel through when she entered the home, now, since he turned his back on the house, he's no longer his kavanah is not in killing the owner. He may not be killed. Now, if he's surrounded by other people or by witnesses, he may not be killed, even if he's still located within the rishus which he broke into. Needless to say, if he is brought by the beis din, he may not be killed. Person who breaks into a garden, a field, a pen, or a corral may not be killed. Why? It should discuss is only coming for money. The fish ain't because owners are not found in such places. Last halacha and the final halachas of Genevah. Whatever license is not granted to kill a thief, we should remove stones from an avalanche that fell upon him on Shabbos. If he destroyed utensils while inside the house, he is chayav for damages. When, however, license is granted to kill a person and he broke utensils while in the home, he is not chayav for the damage. As we explained above, lest be Hashem grants assistance.